Listener discretion is advised.
You are listening to Wine and Crime, the podcast where three friends chug wine, chat true crime, and unleash their worst Minnesotan accents.
Unleash their dobbies. I refused to put on a bra this morning, and I'm calling it. I said, Dobby is a free elf. And then Lucy referred to my boobs as my dobbies, and now that's
Free the dobbies.
Free my dobbies. Hashtag freeze Pamela.
I was scrambling to get coffee to start on time, so I was only glancing at those messages, and I assumed that the dobbies were your poops, because you said that you had to poop.
I did also release those dobbies. Mama got lots of dobbies today.
Dobbies galore.
Dabbies are thriving.
Any fucking way.
Oh, right. Who are we? Wait, did we already say who we were?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm Kenyan.
I'm Lucy.
I'm Dobby. I'm Amanda.
And we're going to be really loopy today because we have a very special gals pick.
Uh-huh.
We wanted to treat ourselves.
Yeah, we're being pick-me gals today.
And so we selected the topic of witch hunts.
Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with witch cunts, like when you're asking which cunt did that cunty thing.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Common mistake.
Yeah.
In the Jacobson household.
Eternal question.
Like
Ladies'
fish
pies.
sticks.
Fish sticks.
Fish sticks.
Gross. I didn't think I could hate fish sticks even more, and now I do.
I really hate fish sticks.
I love them, along with shrimp poppers.
Lucy had shrimp poppers for breakfast, and I almost gagged.
We had to record over lunch.
I had a single stale and poorly baked sugar cookie.
Oof.
For breakfast.
I'm only running on coffee.
Yeah.
Hence
Okay.
the dobbies.
Hence my dabbies. It's early. It's like 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I've been up for a while.
God.
So, fucking witch hunts. Amanda, what is our wine crime pairing for witch hunts?
Well, we have a beautiful pairing today from Winc Wine Club, our amazing sponsor. That is an online wine club that delivers wine directly to your door. Or your local Walgreens, or just across the border from Kentucky in the free lands of Ohio.
For real. It's Indiana, but okay.
Sure. Oh, yeah, Ohio's over there too somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, I'm not crazy, you're crazy. So we are drinking the 2019 Fogland Cabernet.
Ooh,
It had
witchy.
like a delightfully witchy label.
Is that like, is there like storm waters on the label?
Yup.
That is
Yup.
so perfect for my case.
Lot of drownings.
Sorry. So, for some reason, the TV just turned on. That was creepy. Queer Eye just started blaring.
Okay, we're
that's
saying
witchy.
it's a witch. So, quick anecdote. When my mom was here and we were doing tarot readings, and we got to her final card, which was a positive card for her outcome, and and we were like chanting victory, and we did this. The Netflix show, we had the fireplace on in the background, and it had like an hour left to go, and it just switched off and went to the Netflix home screen.
Ugh.
Ew,
Because we were like excited together and doing this.
Energy
you
magic.
and technology.
I know.
You and your mom have weird currents.
Electrical, whatever. Okay. That's
Anyway.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So, yeah, she's a beaut, and she is a Columbia Valley, Washington cab, which is kind of fun. We're not doing a California cab. And you can snag this puppy if you're a member of Winc Wine Club for $14.99.
Great price.
Oh.
Great
And if
price point.
Great price point. And if you're not already a member of Winc Wine Club, you should head to trywinc.com/wine and crime special, because we still have that special going to get 4 bottles for $24.95. And they take care of the shipping.
Love.
That's like epic and incredible. I love them. So a little bit about this Fogland, which no, I will not be opening because we are recording this on New Year's Eve. It's about 11 a.m. I've got a long day ahead of me, and I'm not going to start getting drunk now.
Yeah.
And then fall asleep at 9:30 p.m. with like a half-open bag of chips and crumbs all over my face. Is it specific?
I have
Yes.
every intention of being in bed by 10 o'clock tonight.
1,000% not me. You have tasting notes of cherry, eucalyptus, pomegranate, and rhubarb.
Okay,
Yum.
I love
So
that.
yeah, this is like a very classic Washington State cab flavor profile because of the Washington terroir.
Lots of trees.
Yeah, so it's going to be
Very
a little
wooded.
fruitier.
Humidity.
Probably. I mean, Cab Sauv in particular is a grape that expresses where it's grown. So 2019 Fogland Cab is grown at the same, latitude as the bold, structured wines of Bordeaux. It's worlds away from that style, however. From vineyards in the rain shadow of the Cascade Mountains, this medium-bodied red gives a New World flair to this French grape. Notes of bright red fruit and lush plum are balanced by eucalyptus and spice with a fine-grained tannin finish. It's a lip-smacking red that would be a delight to drink with lamb burgers, burned witches, and za'atar-spiced roasted carrots.
Delish.
She clocks in at 14% ABV. This is a low sulfur and low sugar wine, which I love, and it finishes nice and dry, and it's just like a little more of a medium to light-bodied cab, which is super fun.
I can't get over how perfect the label is for my case. I'm very amped about that.
I'm definitely going to pop this bottle later tonight, but for now, I'm going to crack this strawberry mango sparkling water so we have something to sip on. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Oh,
nice crack.
Nice crack.
I'm also drinking a caffeinated sparkling water.
Plain.
Plain water.
Mm.
Cheers. Good morning.
Yes.
Fucking yum.
Fucking good morning.
Refreshing.
Fucking last day of 2021
Oof.
as we record
Oh,
this.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Goodbye.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, La, what is our background and maybe psych for witch hunts?
I suppose we could count some of this as psych. So I did cover a lot of witchy background in episode 110, Not a Witch Crimes, which was one of our Boston live shows in 2018. So if you're craving more witchy info, you should head on back and give that a listen.
That was
Yeah.
a great app.
Just a fair warning here, I did a kind of a deep dive into this because
Okay.
my lover, Britannica, had a whole lot of very interesting information. So most of my
right.
notes are from said lover.
I want to be your lover.
Ugh, take a number.
Ugh.
So a witch hunt can refer either to a searching out for persecution of persons accused of witchcraft or the searching out and deliberate harassment of those, such as political opponents, with unpopular views, aka the sad little orange man.
Yeah, it's not
It's
a
a
witch,
witch
hunt,
hunt.
if you actually did the crimes you're being accused of.
Low bet.
I'm not going to be talking about the political aspect of this because, frankly, every time I say the word witch hunt in like a political context, I hear it in Trump's
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
right.
fucking can't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fair
So,
enough.
Witchcraft and sorcery date back basically to the dawn of humanity, since it very frequently served to explain scientific phenomena that we just didn't quite have a grasp of.
And I fully get it after we went and witnessed the
Equinox.
Eclipse.
The
Or
eclipse, the solar eclipse.
Oh, that was the hands down most dramatic actual
Incredible
experience of my life.
Yeah, and we all three of us, it was me, Lucy, and Scott. We holed up in a graveyard in Tecumseh, Nebraska, And then afterward, we were like, oh, we get why like religion and sorcery exist because we have all the science in the world to explain what just happened. And we still like can't wrap our fucking heads around it.
It was
epic.
mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the terror that countless people felt when that happened seemingly out of fucking nowhere because they didn't know.
So scary. It was scary knowing what was going on.
I almost sacrificed children that day
We were this
to
close.
appease the gods.
Just
Yeah.
in case. You never know.
You never know.
How
Okay.
many more kids where that came from?
I know, right? If only we can't sacrifice more.
Overpopulation is a huge problem.
There
We're
are
helping you out.
too many people. We're saving
Too
money.
many You're saving money.
Okay. So, quote, although accusations of witchcraft in contemporary cultures provide a means to express or resolve social tensions, these accusations had different consequences in pre-modern Western society, where the mixture of irrational fear and a persecuting mentality led to the emergence of witch hunts.
Mm-hmm.
In the 11th century, attitudes toward witchcraft and sorcery began to change, so it was previously not considered as necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically just like science, you know?
It was like, well, that's medicine.
Yeah.
Right, it works. So
I'll
whatever.
take your salve,
Yeah.
herbalist in the woods.
So this change was a process that would radically transform the Western perception of witchcraft and associate it with heresy and the devil.
Mm-hmm.
By the 14th century, fear of heresy and of Satan had added charges of diabolism to the usual, great word, to the usual indictment of witches, maleficium. Maleficium. Do you know that for sure?
Yep.
Maleficium. Sounds better as maleficium, but I'll
Like
I'll
a
go with it.
maleficent.
Yeah, which is malevolent sorcery. It was this combination of sorcery and its association with the devil that made Western witchcraft unique. I have to sneeze. Hold on.
Oh.
It's the witch.
You have to release the devil within. The devil within.
I saw Goody Lucy sneeze out the devil.
I can't do it. Distracted.
The devil is tripped.
The Satan pushed it back up my nose. Oh my God. What is that in The Simpsons that you have to say bless you? Milhouse says like, will you sneeze out demons? And then you say bless you to cram them back into your face.
I don't remember.
That adds up. That
Yeah.
tracks.
From the 14th through the 18th century, we see the stereotypical witch characteristics and behaviors emerge through folklore. So witches repudiated Jesus Christ. They made pacts with the devil, sold their souls for his assistance, employed demons to accomplish magical deeds, and desecrated the crucifix and the consecrated bread and wine of the Eucharist.
Wow. Those all sound like fun activities.
I know, right?
Get off my nut.
It gets better. They flew around at night to attend orgies and changed shapes. They had animal familiars, aka pets, calm down.
Yeah.
And they kidnapped and murdered children for the purpose of eating them or rendering their fat for magical ointments.
Listen,
Basically just hocus pocus.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
They didn't have
Times
chapstick.
are
What are you going to
hard.
do? Just
Yeah.
die? So obviously all of this is bullshit. Although there were certainly people who practiced sorcery and witchcraft with malevolent purposes, probably, most definitely, and even people who were fully worshiping Satan, in reality, nobody ever fit the mold of what everyone was afraid witches were doing, because, again, it's all bullshit.
Right.
Quote, nonetheless, the witches' crimes were defined in law. Excellent combo of church and state. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's really
The
perfect.
Hat mix.
How could it go wrong? The witch hunts varied enormously in place and time, but they were united by a common and coherent theological and legal worldview. Local priests and judges, though seldom experts in either theology or law, were nonetheless part of a culture that believed in the reality of witches as much as modern society believes in the reality of molecules. So there was like no room for skepticism. Like this was
it was a
what
given.
was happening.
That witches existed, the devil existed, he took a form.
Yep.
Like, it was fact.
All true fact.
Black and white. Because so much of the centuries of witch hysteria was based on folklore, social anxieties, and paranoia, researchers began to study how much of any of this stuff, so being actual witchcraft, witch hunts, torture trials, accusations, prosecutions, executions, etc. So they were studying like how much this actually happened from an anthropological perspective in like the 1960s and 70s.
Wow.
They were looking specifically at Roman Catholic and Protestant cultures in Western Europe, so that's going to be the majority of what we're talking about today. The charge of maleficium was super common because anyone could accuse anyone else of witchcraft with no evidence.
Yeah.
It
was just it was just people fucking saying shit.
Oh, we will get to it, I am certain.
One of the accusations that I read about was a guy who accused his female neighbor of witchcraft after he woke up with a headache after a night of heavy drinking.
It's her fucking fault that he's hungover. I get that.
It's just stupid shit like that all the time.
Like, that's fair. Blame the women.
Yeah. Or like anytime like your cow gets sick. It's like, well, cows get sick.
I don't know.
But no, it's
That
gotta be
sounds like
witchcraft.
heresy to me.
And she has a
Shut your
a
whore
mole.
mouth.
There's a mole on her body.
Well,
So
I'm
obviously-
sold.
Moles. We'll get to the
Say
moles.
no more.
So, quote, the most common suspicions concerned livestock, your sick cows, crops, storms, disease, property and inheritance, sexual dysfunction or rivalry, family feuds, marital discord, step-parents, sibling rivalries, and local politics. Maleficium was a threat not only to individuals but also to public order, for a community racked by suspicions about witches could split asunder.
You don't say.
I
Let
love the
no
word
man
asunder.
split asunder.
No wonder the term witch hunt has entered common political parlance to describe such campaigns as that of the late Senator Joseph McCarthy in his attempt to root out communists in the United States in the 1950s.
Yet another evil that Wisconsin has unleashed upon the world.
I always forget that. Holy shit. Really, guys, lock it up.
Keep your shit
Come
to
on.
yourselves.
God.
Build that wall around Wisconsin.
I will fund that campaign. I want it to be a dome, though, because you can't just fly in and out.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
soon
like the
announcing
witches do.
our Wisconsin live show locations.
I know, and we had to tell our agent, maybe plan a smaller venue for any Wisconsin live shows because
We've alienated a lot of folks.
Milwaukee is beautiful, though. I do
Love
like
it.
Milwaukee.
Love Milwaukee.
So beyond the maleficium of Western Europe, we see a lot of accusations of, quote, trafficking with evil spirits in other parts of the world. So in the Near East, so it would be ancient Mesopotamia, Syria, Canaan, and Palestine, belief in the existence of evil spirits was universal, so that both religion and magic were thought to be needed to appease, offer protection from, or manipulate these spirits. So spirits in general weren't necessarily evil in a lot of these cultures, so they were just kind of there. So it was
just
not
part of it. They're
It
part
wasn't
of
the
it.
same black and white, good and bad as it was in Western Europe, for example.
well, it's so funny because in Christianity, if you think about it, there are plenty of spirits, but everyone's
Right.
like, well, angels are fine. If you see angels and you're talking to angels, then that's fine.
You're good.
But if you see spirits,
Oh, spirit.
Angels
You
are
know?
fucked up too. Like they're covered in eyeballs.
They're
Disgusting.
terrifying.
They're not
Foul.
cute. They're foul.
oh my God.
In Greco-Roman civilizations, you had a lot of groups sacrificing animals, meeting at night, having orgies, drinking, all the same shit, but that was like fun.
All the fun
and
stuff.
Fine.
Yeah.
These
Us
behaviors
every week doing this podcast minus the animal
sacrificing
sacrifice.
animals.
Well, we kind of hold up Ray in a sacrificial way.
Yeah, where is he?
Don't
Barfing
feed
in the
him.
other room, probably.
Probably making his own sacrifice to the gods.
Of Ghostface.
Yeah.
So these behaviors eventually morphed into a pretty standard set of bizarre accusations, including the sacrifice of children, made by various groups such as the Syrians against the Jews in Hellenistic Syria in the 2nd century BCE. So that was a very early one. By the Romans against the Christians, by early Christians against heretics and Jews, by later Christians against witches, and as late as the 20th century by Protestants against Catholics. Oh, and also by the alt-right against the Hollywood liberal elite, because cheese pizza is never just cheese pizza.
Yeah.
It stands
It's
for
so...
child prostitution or whatever CP is supposed to be.
Oh my God.
That's a legit claim that they
Just
make.
a perfect garbage cocktail of like anti-Semitism, misogyny, and like Christian pre-science, like secular bonkers.
Like, nothing is new.
It doesn't-
Nothing is new.
I go off on a complete mental breakdown in the middle of my notes, and you will know it when you hear it. I just started typing like this, ramming coffee down my throat at 8:30 this morning and screaming into my computer, running on 4 hours of sleep. Yeah.
Hence the Dobbies.
My dobbies.
So these hostilities were generally directed towards marginalized groups, no shit,
Yeah.
labeled as heretics or really just others. This pattern really began to take shape between the years 1050 and 1300, which was also an era of enormous reform, reorganization, and centralization in both the ecclesiastical and secular aspects of society, an important aspect of which was suppressing dissent. So obviously on both sides of that, we just really want to clamp down on those heretics.
All that free thought. I'm not a fan.
Don't like it. It's
Nope.
not good for the
Not
state.
good. It's
For
not
the
good.
church.
It's really not good
Basically
for the
same
church.
thing.
Yep.
The visible role played by women in some heresies during this period may have contributed to the stereotype of the witch as female. Super. The reformations of the 16th century also prompted a resurgence because people were more inclined during this time to value personal piety over the goodwill of the community. So they were more, I guess, selfish, self-interested. So they were more likely to be like, well, my neighbor's a heretic because she's
Right.
an old bitch.
Yeah. Get rid of that old bitch.
And I want her property.
I want her cows
I want
and
her
her
sick
land.
cow. Yeah. So things were very black and white, good and bad, and people were not fucking around during this time. Literacy was also spreading, and people were reading the Bible more and also interpreting it more literally rather than listening to sermons that had, like, you know, editorializing more or less.
Literacy is the downfall of society, let me tell you.
Well, we turn it around. We turn it around.
Just listen to what the people who can read tell you, believe it with no questions asked, and everything will be fine.
Or better yet, be forced to attend 3 hours of church
Right.
multiple times a week, but make
Right.
sure that everything said in that church is in a language that you don't understand.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Like, I don't see the problem.
The
We're
old-fashioned
going on
way.
body language here.
Body
And
language
don't
incest.
underestimate the importance of body language.
The whole like Old Testament is just an interpretive dance.
Oh, I love this part.
Men don't really like a lot of blabber.
Okay, so more literacy, more book publishing, and also lots of books about Satan's power and guarding against heresy were being spread around. So it wasn't just Bible stuff. It was
Right.
people reading the Bible,
It
having
was
their
Bible
own
fanfic.
interpretations.
Yeah,
It was Bible
fanfic.
fanfic.
Oh my God, the downfall of society.
It really was Old Testament fanfic.
Ooh.
The first witch trial, and so we can assume witch hunt, is believed to have occurred around 1300. By 1435, they really got going, and witch hunts were happening all over the place. By the end of the 15th century, a couple things happened that put gasoline on the proverbial fire. Pope Innocent VIII published an article about witchcraft as Satanism and the worst possible heresy. So he was like, this is the worst thing you can do.
We will kill you for it.
And then some. And Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Sprenger published a piece called The Hammer of Witches, which blamed witchcraft almost entirely on women.
Yeah.
Deeply misogynist. So that did a lot to propel people's thoughts in that lovely direction.
Arena. Yeah.
There were several ways in which the courts would determine whether or not someone was a witch.
I love this. And full disclosure, I was going to try to administer like a Salem sect check. But it was a lot. It was a lot of like perfect prayer reading and then like a lot of physical challenges. It's not like a fun quiz. So it's
not a mostly bees.
It's not a mostly bees. So I booted that from my seg. So thank you,
None
Lucy.
of us would pass.
Oh my God.
No. Okay, so also trigger warning, this gets a bit violent. Local courts were a lot more severe than regional or superior courts, often employing, quote, crude practices such as pricking witches to see whether the devil had desensitized them to the pain. Also pricking people to see how much or how little they bled. And that would be an indication of whether they were, like, infected by Satan. Also, I would pass that test because, like, don't fucking prick me.
Every
scream. Yeah.
They would search for the devil's mark, which could be an oddly shaped mole or wart.
I'd be fucked.
Oh, so fun. I'm covered in moles.
Yeah.
And your wart, honey.
And my wart, I know, which is mostly cleared up.
Okay, we don't need to. It's okay.
Okay.
All right.
I have
minimize my chat window. Oh, God.
Or they would test for swimming, which was throwing the accused into a pond. If she sank, she was innocent because the water accepted her.
Yeah, it was believed that if they were a witch, they would be evil and the water would reject them and therefore they would float.
And so you're dead either way. Because if you float, they're going to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
And if you sink, they're like, oh, good.
Yeah. And
nailed
then
it.
it's not like they could like easily dive to get you if you sunk. And also
you're fucked.
Your hands and feet are tied.
Yeah.
And you're in clothes. Heavy
Lots
skirts.
of clothes.
Even if you're buoyant, you're gonna sink.
Yeah.
That's just murder. It's not a test. It's just murder.
And that was not classified as a form of torture. It was just
that was a
classified
test.
as like a test. Yeah.
Yep. We'll get to the torture right now.
Oh,
Capital
good.
punishment and torture were used to get the names of supposed accomplices, frequently leading to a horrific chain of accusations, as described in an article from the Daily Mail UK.
Love.
Torture might include, as in the example of Gaelis Duncan, a Scottish teenager.
Who is a character in Outlander.
Oh, fun.
Gaelis
I don't watch
Duncan.
that. I don't watch
Well,
that show.
Spoiler alert, she's dead.
Whatever. It's a fictional book. Okay.
Gaelis Duncan was a Scottish teenager in 1590, and they employed the use of a pillywinks, which is not as cute as it sounds.
Tiddlywinks.
A pillywinks is a thumb screw that was used to crush her fingers
Oh,
until they
God.
splintered.
No.
Like, really crushed her fingers.
Oh.
There's no coming back from that.
Oh, she doesn't come back.
Healing of that.
She doesn't come back. Quote, after being thrawed with a rope, I didn't look that up, twisted around her head. She was stripped naked and her head and body were shaved. Her tormentors claimed to have found the devil's mark on her throat. Another local woman,
After they, like, choked her?
Yeah.
Like, bitch, it's a bruise. You fucking choked me.
Yeah. Another local woman, Agnes Sampson, was subjected to sleep deprivation while being kept pinned to the wall of her cell by a witch's bridle, which was an iron contraption that forced 4 sharp prongs into her mouth.
Nope.
So she was being held there by her mouth.
Once again, I'm just going to say that it sucks that we're not in control of, like, when you're in that situation, you can't just be like, I'm done. I opt out. I would like to expire now.
Right.
You know, like
Right.
in those extreme physical situations.
I would also choose death if given the choice. That is
Well,
hell.
most of them did by false confessions.
Right.
Was essentially the only way out.
Yeah, to end it. Mm-hmm.
Dr. John Theon, a schoolmaster, was also caught up in the witch-finding frenzy. His fingernails were ripped off and iron pins inserted in their place. His fingers were also crushed by the Pillywinks and his legs trapped by the boot.
Pillywinks would be a great cat name.
It really would, but really.
I like Tambourine better.
Well,
Tambourine
yeah.
was a great call.
Thank you.
I don't know how you came up with that, but it was genius.
Good.
Even a blind squirrel gets a nut every once in a while.
Okay, so the boot is a metal frame designed to crush the shin bone, and it's often applied red hot.
Nope.
All 3 of these poor people were executed, their bodies garroted to a stake at the top of a pyre and then burned.
Nope.
Very over the top.
Nope.
Most of them were killed before they were burned. And they were only burned because they were afraid that they'd like come back to life.
Sure.
So for example, one executed woman was buried, quote, in a wooden box weighed down by a huge stone slab, lest she rise from her grave to make mischief.
Only Jesus is allowed to do that.
Only Jesus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was just drinking.
Witch.
I know.
She's a witch.
She needs water. She's a witch.
Turn me into a newt.
A newt?
Okay.
I got better.
So I was surprised by kind of a lot of things that I learned in this article, one of which was that during the Inquisition, which I would assume would be like height of torture for heretics in particular, witch trials actually became less common. And this was because of the strict rules and structure of the judicial system, plus increasingly skeptical judges. For example, they would seek to determine whether there was any prejudice in the accusations in the first place. They also didn't allow for naming of accomplices either under torture or not.
Okay. They were like, we have rules. It's still bad, but we have rules and standards.
Exactly.
And they could just burn heretics.
Right.
They had plenty of people to burn.
Yeah. They also required third-party reviews of every statement, and if a person was convicted, the courts were more likely to sentence one to whipping, banishment, or house arrest for first-time offenders rather than death. So, Inquisition, kind of a better time to be an accused witch.
Oh
than
my
previous.
I mean, you could be accused of a lot of things and still killed.
I know. I'm just saying that was kind of surprising.
And also, like, being thrown into, like, these horrific prisons and, like, not fed and not being able to bathe and, you know, whatever, and, like, being exposed to disease and stuff, not considered torture.
That's still happening now in the American prison system.
At least there were no pillywinks involved. By the late 16th century, witch hunts were gradually chilling out. This was partly because, like, by now everyone had been accused of witchcraft. And the leaders of society were like, well, being accused of witchcraft kind of sucks for me. So let's collectively move on to something else. Yeah. People were also sick of religious wars and state-sanctioned torture, plus even more widespread literacy led to a bit more critical thinking and skepticism just overall.
Are you
So-
sure by the late 16th century? So I feel
That's
like in
what
England
my boyfriend
and
said.
in England
In
and
mine, it was the
Scotland,
17th century. And
it was
It hadn't-
ramping back up.
You can
Maybe-
check my sources if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Uh,
all my stuff happened in the 17th century, and it was like widespread.
Yeah, same.
Okay, well,
Like
do
the
you want me to
16
look it up?
No, I don't
whatever.
care. My stuff just happens in like the 1670s, basically.
Mhm.
This is when things started to settle down.
And my stuff's not
Not like
happening.
it's not like it ended overnight.
Right.
It ramped up over like 300 or 400 years, and now we're cooling off over like 300 or 400 years too.
Mm-hmm.
So it began to be essentially decriminalized. Like people were just kind of like, okay, starting to be like whatever. We don't really care anymore on a state level.
Mm-hmm.
About 75% of witch hunts in Europe happened in Western Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Northern Italy, and Switzerland. Whereas Spain, Portugal, and Southern Italy were a lot more chill about things. When Spanish colonists came to the Americas, there were some skirmishes there too. I mean, they're for the first time confronting these civilizations they have absolutely no knowledge of.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, the easiest thing for them to do would be to call them all witches and
You're different from me.
Lots of that stuff too. Yeah.
Witch.
And of course, we have the Salem witch trials, but really in the grand scheme of the whole history of witch hunts, that was like
A blip.
an end note, like
Yep.
a very small scale and pretty late in the game.
Yeah, it
Right.
was like nothing compared to what was going on around like Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Shit was bonks.
It also just like happened in a vacuum,
Mhm.
and really only 19 people were executed. So it wasn't, again, it was short-lived and pretty minor.
We just have a lot of information about it.
Exactly.
So that's why it has kind of stuck in the consciousness.
Well, especially to Americans.
right.
Contemporary witch hunts have been reported in sub-Saharan Africa and Papua New Guinea, and official legislation against witchcraft is currently on the books in Saudi Arabia and Cameroon. So that's great.
Well, that's interesting.
Cover
Okay.
all your bases just
Yeah.
in case.
So this article, like I said, debunks a lot of assumptions that I and probably a lot of people have had about witch hunts. Although we tend to assume the worst in numbers when it comes to witch hunts throughout history, but the numbers actually indicate that no more than about 110,000 people in total were tried for witchcraft, and no more than 40,000 to 60,000 people were executed, which is still a lot, but it wasn't like
But like
the
throughout
Holocaust.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
And while we don't know the exact reasons behind witch hunts, this article outlines a few things that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Most scholars agree that the prosecutions were not driven by political or gender concerns. They were not attacks on backward or rural societies. They did not function to express or relieve local tensions. They were not a result of the rise of capitalism or other macroeconomic changes. They were not the result of changes in family structure or in the role of women in society. And they were not an effort by cultural elites to impose their views on the populace.
These were just like effective side effects of
I
these
mean,
witch hunts.
well, I'll keep going. Yeah, you're not wrong. Moreover, the evidence does not indicate a close correlation between socioeconomic tension and witchcraft, though agrarian crises seem to have had some effect. Although the proportions varied according to religion and time, on the whole, about 3/4 of convicted witches were female. Women were certainly more likely than men to be economically and politically powerless, but that generalization is too broad to be helpful, for it holds true in societies in periods where witchcraft is absent.
Right.
The malevolent sorcery more often associated with men, such as harming crops and livestock, was rarer than it was ascribed to women. Young women were sometimes accused of infanticide, but midwives and nurses were not particularly at risk. Older women were more frequently accused of casting malicious spells than were younger women because they had more, I love this, because they had more time to establish a bad reputation. And the process from suspicion to conviction often took so long that a woman might have aged considerably before the charges were actually advanced.
Also, like older women, like as a society, we are, prejudiced against
Ageist.
we're ageist.
We're not
exactly.
virgins.
Right.
Yeah,
We don't have any value there. They're
There's
more
no
likely
more
to be.
reproductive capacity.
They're more likely to be single
Right.
single, maybe
or
ill,
widowed.
ugly, like
Yeah. All
by
the things
societal
that assign
standards.
value to
Right.
you as a woman are
Right.
deteriorating as you age.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer
I get it. I support it. Get rid of us.
To answer Amanda's question, explanations of witch hunts are so diverse and complicated that we really can't ascribe a handful of specific reasons behind them. The only thing we can really say with certainty is that they were consistent with the prevailing worldview of the intelligent, educated, and powerful. It's literally the only string that ties every single instance
Yeah, the cultural elites were like, witch hunting was like their hobby, their interest. It was like a trend. And so this happened.
Yep.
All
So
right.
that is my
Cool.
very long segment.
Loved it.
Well, it was fascinating. Well done.
Thanks.
Brill.
Are we ready for my case?
Yes.
Sure.
Hunt me.
I had to choose this based on my favorite album of all time, Wizard Women of the North,
Oh my god.
yeah, my favorite.
which I listened to while writing my notes at 2 a.m. last night. And Zach was like, what the fuck is happening?
You are not well. Put on your hat.
So everybody, it's on Spotify now. So go check out Wizard Women of the North. And it's the best.
I
ever.
don't have to because you two have sung all of it to me, as has Scott, as has my nightmares.
It's too good.
Okay, so Varda is a rural town situated at the extreme northeasternmost tip of Norway. And you gotta go look at a photo of the map because
Okay.
you are not gonna believe where this bitch is.
It's a lot of photos in here. Wow.
Do you fucking see where that is?
It's
Oh my
just an
God.
iceberg off the coast.
Yeah.
Iceberg right ahead.
Right ahead. Is anyone alive out there?
Yeah, we're talking Santa's workshop,
Yeah.
North Pole
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Where this is. And this general area is kind of known as, or was known as, Finnmark because it's like Norway. It's like Finland's hat above, but it's part of Norway, whatever. So fun fact, Varda is actually more eastern than even St. Petersburg, Russia, or Istanbul, Turkey. Because of how
Weird.
far north it is and how it
Yeah.
like curves.
Cool.
Isn't that bizarre?
Maps
are
are
wild.
wild. And we've but like they actually are because
Yeah.
most of the maps, at least in the US education system that we grew up learning, are like wildly inaccurate and center
Yeah.
the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a-
I took a geography class in
Yeah.
college.
Yeah.
And we studied all sorts of maps, and they're mind-bending.
Yep. Like the
It's
map
like-
we as Americans know pop
Is
up in our
totally
brain as
distorted.
the map is just wrong. It's
Yeah.
the wrong map.
I stole a map from one of my classrooms in China, and it's like it's very different from our standard maps here.
Oof.
So this area is also comprised of numerous small islands and has icebergs and has been home to indigenous Sami fishing communities since the Stone Age. And then later medieval Norwegians built like an important border fortress there, which has become known as the Vardahus Castle,
Love.
Bless you.
as the Pannekuchen Hus.
Gesundheit. Gesundhus.
So today, Vardo remains extremely remote. It is a 24-plus hour car ride from Oslo.
Good Lord. And Norway's not even that big.
No.
It's just like you got to wind through a lot of fjord mountain to get there.
It's really fucking far from everything.
And I would imagine you probably have to take ferries at some point with your car. It's just, yikes.
There are flight and ferry options, but it's still fucking hard to get to in 2021.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, we have to go.
Yeah.
We're doing a show there.
We're doing a Varda show. You're going to actually want to by the time I get to the end of my case.
I already want to. I love Norway.
So this remains a small, isolated community, even in modern times. Now, just imagine how isolated it must have felt back in the early 17th century.
Yeah, when you could only walk there by, like, existing ice
Reindeer.
floes. Yeah.
Literally reindeer. They
Flying
literally,
reindeer.
was like their main livestock.
Yep.
Wow.
So we don't have exact population figures from this period, go figure, but historians estimate that roughly 3,000 people resided in the entire Finnmark region at this time.
That's still more than I was expecting.
Well, the whole region.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like in a place that would be so hard to survive and thrive, it surprises me that even that many people spanned that region.
Right.
In the 1600s.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But it was also like one person to every 6,000 reindeer.
Yeah.
Oh, wildly outnumbered by reindeer.
And in the village of Varda, specifically, not more than 150 people.
Perfect.
And again,
that is exactly how many people I want in my community. No more than 150.
15.
Again, this population was a mix of Norwegian Christians and indigenous Sami peoples who lived together side by side. They intermarried. There were some, separations and differences, but there was also like a lot of coexistence and it was pretty harmonious.
Pretty
Wasn't
peaceful,
a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then on Christmas Eve, 1617,
When all bad things happen.
while most of the able-bodied men in the community were out to sea fishing, a great storm arose all of a sudden.
Scary.
Contemporary reports claim that the winds were so violent that, quote, the sea and the sky became one.
Oh, God.
no.
Huge waves are my absolute nightmare.
Yep. And eyewitnesses said that the storm happened almost without warning, quote, as if loosened from a bag. It just
and I mean, everything's going to happen without warning in the 1600s. Like, you know how to track, like, weather patterns and certain things like
You
that.
see a storm rolling in from the
Pressures and-
ocean, though.
Sure, but,
Right.
like, it's not like you have, the National Weather Service telling you to
no.
go in your
If
basement.
this is an eyewitness testimony, then clearly they have what usually works, and this super did not fit
Exactly.
into that.
Well, all these
Exactly.
people would not have been out to sea fishing if they had any inclination that
Right.
a major storm was coming. Like, it happened very suddenly, and they're attuned to the weather as best they can be. So as a result, 40 local fishermen drowned,
Ooh.
and 10 fishing boats
That's
were
like
sunk.
half the
It's like
community.
way less than that.
It's
but
it's almost
it's a lot.
It's every single
Able-bodied
adolescent
man.
and adult man, including the fucking pastor.
Who is basically like
Who's
the
also a
mayor and the
fisherman.
governor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's believed that practically every single family in the area lost at least one loved one, fathers, sons, husbands, everything. A folk song from the period goes, quote, on the 10 boats were 40 men, some married and others mere boys. Then was heard great cries of woe among fatherless children and widows low.
Oh.
Is that a Wizard Women of the North song?
I don't know, because
Wizard,
all the songs
Wizard of the
are in
Wizard song.
Norwegian, and so I don't know what they're saying.
Got it. Okay. Can assume yes.
Maybe.
Pannekuchen, yes.
Pannekuchen, maybe.
Pretty safe to say that folk song also like summons your reindeer herd from the hills, though,
Probably.
too.
Yeah.
It doubles.
Okay.
Oh, no.
She's a witch.
She is a witch. Oh, my God. Someone just ran off the road listening to this.
Dogs are going berserk.
Yeah, we need to be careful. We don't want to harm our listeners.
I'm a witch.
So, after such a terrible communal tragedy, human nature is such that people often tend to seek someone to blame.
Mm-hmm.
And so rumors began to spread that perhaps witches were to blame for calling the storm into being because it seemed to happen so suddenly.
Yeah, that's fair.
That tracks.
That tracks.
So earlier that same year, the Danish-Norwegian King Christian IV, who was an avid witch hunter, had published a decree defining a witch as someone who was bonded or consorted with the devil, and pressed district governors to crack down on the, quote, sorcery and witchcraft practiced by the local Sami population.
Okay.
And the king was like, don't show them any mercy. Get them.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So basically, the indigenous Sami's traditional pagan beliefs and practices were reviled by the Christian authorities, and Sami men in particular were supposed to practice sorcery using their ceremonial rune drums, which are super cool, and there are some photos of them on the drive as well.
Ooh. Oh, wow. Cool.
Cute.
Yeah, so they had like shamans, and I wish I had more time to get into the Sami stuff. It's very, very cool. So it was also kind of generally believed throughout Europe at the time that, quote, evilness could be found in the north.
Got it. Yep.
And that this wild area was like the outskirts of Christendom, and there were like crazy north winds, and that was actually the devil's breath.
And they also like lived among indigenous people with different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was just like, and the traders would, be like sailing through there to like get between like Russia and the rest of Europe, and there would be like storms, and it was fucking cold and dark and
Lots of shipwrecks.
Yeah.
Must be witches. Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So, quote, word spread that Norway had the most notorious witches.
Cool.
I love that.
Meanwhile, local church leaders in Norway, meanwhile, the local population of Norwegian Christians is like hella fucking Christian. And the only way they can like hang out together in communities is to like go to church.
Right.
Everything was centered around church. So the church leaders are railing against witchcraft and Satan from their pulpits weekly. So everybody's on high alert looking for witches, right? It also probs didn't help that everyone was dealing with this collective shipwreck trauma.
Yeah.
This like mass death event.
Lots going on.
And then in the winter, the sun doesn't rise.
Yeah.
For like months at a time. There's no sunlight.
Yeah. This is tough stuff.
I knew that like the daylight hours would be shorter, but up here for like 2 months a year, there's no sun.
Yep.
Okay.
Maybe like like some light on the horizon for like a couple of hours, but it's not like direct sunlight.
But like not even. Like
It
literally
doesn't
there's no
rise at all.
time for a sunrise.
Ugh.
Yeah. So while the king's new anti-sorcery, anti-witchcraft law was issued in 1617, it took 3 years before this new law was brought up to Finnmark because that's how fucking isolated this community is.
Dang.
Oh, Jesus.
Ugh.
So it shouldn't really be surprising that this dark, freezing tinderbox exploded in witchcraft accusations in the winter and spring of 1621. Basically,
There's nothing else to do.
as soon as they heard about this new witchcraft law, they were like, great.
Boom. Let's go.
Cindy Lou Who.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
I saw Goody Santa with the devil.
Yeah.
They're just bored.
They're bored as hell.
Yeah.
And terrified
And
and
traumatized.
Grieving. Yeah,
And grieving.
exactly.
Yeah. So
I get it.
in January 1621, Mari Jørgensdatter of Kieberg.
Oh, I talk about her briefly
Really?
in my case because it sparks stuff in my case.
Oh my God.
So this is perfect.
So bizarre.
Was brought to the Vardahus castle and questioned. I don't know why she was picked out initially. There's not much information about why she was like the first one. And questioned, undoubtedly under torture. She told her inquisitors that on Christmas Eve, as she was lying in her bed, the devil came to her side and asked if she would serve him. She agreed, and as a sign of their pact, he bit her hand in between her fingers, thereby leaving a devil's mark.
Ooh.
He then instructed her to fly with him through the night sky and visit her friend Kirsty Sorensdatter.
Lots of daughters.
Oh, this is like the
They're all
story
daughters.
of the original American Girl dolls.
Oh my God. I would have been even more into it.
Yeah.
If there had been an American Girl doll that had been accused of witchcraft. Oh my God.
I'm
sales.
confident we made up our own storylines for your
Yeah.
American Girl doll that included
for
that.
I'm sure. So once there, she said that Kirsty cast a spell on Mari, turning her into a raven and sent her again flying, this time to the town of Leiterhorn near Bergen. But on the way, Raven Mari stopped at Baldvolden and partied with the Dark Lord, other witches, and even a few, quote, troll devils.
Yes. This
So-
sounds lit.
Yeah.
Happy fucking New Year, y'all.
Merry fucking Christmas Eve.
Let's do it.
As a raven, yeah.
Yeah. Drinking ale, dancing, and generally carousing, through the night. But Mari's forced confession didn't end with her recounting of this witch's Sabbath. No, she also claimed that she and her fellow witches had cast the deadly Christmas Eve storm 3 years prior.
Ooh, girl, you are walking a dangerous plank.
Well, she was tortured. She was like, they were like, and did you cast any storms? And
Right.
she was like,
Yes,
yeah,
fine,
the
stop.
big one.
Stop tiddlywinking my fucking fingers off. Jesus Christ.
So, quote, like stirred ashes, the sea's mighty froth was unleashed and people drowned. So,
God, we just don't talk like we used to.
I know. So, co-accused Elsa Knutsdatter was arrested after gasp being seen in the company of black dogs and cats.
Uh-oh.
Lucy
Which-
would have been fucked.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't really care. Whatever.
And she further elaborated in court, quote, the spell was cast by tying a piece of string into 3 knots, cursing and spitting upon it before untying the string. And that was supposed to call the storm into being. That was the spell.
Okay, that's all it took.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, we could call that. We could call those corners.
Oh, yeah. Anna Larsdottir seemed to have had a really great time partying with Satan at the Sabbath. She told her interrogators that she barely made it back home in time to get up for church on Christmas Day.
So hungover. Sorry, Sabbath ran long.
Snuck back in through the downstairs sliders.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was my move as a teen.
I know.
Yeah, that's every teen's move.
Yeah, that's the move.
Never have sliders.
Always have sliders. Also, I'm hungry.
So others confessed to your standard
Yum.
evil doing, turning into cats, cursing people, sickening livestock, driving fish away from the shore so they, couldn't catch enough fish, etc.
Sure.
The interrogators placed an emphasis on the accused naming other accomplices, and thus the witchcraft trials spread rapidly in clusters or like linked chains of panic. Because even after they confessed to whatever they said they did alone, they weren't left alone or free from torture until they named accomplices.
Oh, yeah.
So several of the convicted women pointed to Kirsty Sorensdatter as their group leader, referring to her with the unmistakable nautical lingo of fishing communities as their admiral, which I thought was very funny. And
Admirable.
don't you think that that's interesting? Like they
Yeah.
have all this like nautical whatever, and they're like, she's our admiral.
Yeah.
But the fact that Kirsty was out of town at the time and in Bergen was probably a factor in these accusations because it was safer to accuse her because maybe she'd hear about it and not come back and be saved.
Right.
Yeah, they couldn't go scoop her up right away.
Right. So that's
Takes
why
8 years to get off this iceberg. Probably safe.
Right. So I thought that, people, they were trying to
Right. Skirt
Not-
the system.
yeah, but then she did come back. So upon her return to Varda after the holidays, she was immediately arrested, eventually tried in April 1621 and condemned and burned at the stake.
Oh.
So one common method to, quote, loose the tongues of the defiant accused was the ordeal by water, which we've talked about.
Swimming.
But keep in mind, this isn't just like a pond in rural England.
It is
This is
Arctic Ocean.
ocean in midwinter.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't survive this.
No.
In pitch darkness.
Yeah.
Ugh.
This is a river, but it's raging.
I still brag about how I went swimming in the Atlantic off Normandy in March on a warm sunny day.
And survive.
That was recreational.
Yeah.
You weren't even being accused of
I
witchcraft.
wasn't even tied and
You
wearing
dipped
skirts.
one toe in Florida and went, nope.
Nope. I need it to be warm. I need a hot tub. So those that failed
Indoors.
by floating
Yeah.
and thus survived the ordeal knew that they would be sentenced to death no matter what, and yet the torture was still wildly effective because many recalcitrant defendants who refused to confess up until then were broken by this ordeal, and then they would quickly confess and implicate other people, even though they knew they were going to be killed no matter what, but they just didn't want to be tested again.
Yeah. Because
They didn't want to be
In the
killed
sea.
in that way.
Right.
Ugh,
Right.
That's so gross.
So people were also held in horrific conditions at the Vardahus castle, which included a witch's hole. And at least 2 people died by torture before they could even be legally sentenced to death.
Yikes.
The preferred method of execution was burning at the stake, which is also fucking horrific. While 1621 was the year that the Finnmark witch hunts really kicked off, they would go on sporadically until 1692, which isn't that the year of the Salem witch hunts?
I don't know.
No, that's when Columbus discovered America.
That's
thought that
right.
was
1492.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Salem.
Some 92.
Even I knew that.
That's 1992.
That was
You're thinking of
1992.
yeah. Salem was 1692.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if that's connected or not.
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have Facebook.
They're pretty
then,
fucking
so-
far away from each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
So in total, 135 people would be accused of practicing witchcraft, 2/3 of whom, so 91, were ultimately executed. The vast majority of the accused were Norwegian, i.e. Christian women, so 111 women versus 24 men accused. Obviously, misogyny played a big role in this skewed gender breakdown. There was a common belief that while the men were out to sea for extended periods of time, their unruly women were getting up to stuff back home.
I mean, probably. Lay off.
Including, quote, committing adultery with demons.
Which is basically just masturbation.
Probably.
Like,
I mean,
yeah.
whatever works.
Yeah.
But don't worry, racism was also at play.
It always is.
But of the 24 accused men, 16 were Sami. And only 2 of the men were subjected to the ordeal by water. Mostly women were subjected to that. But still, the overall outcomes for the Sami men were bleak. 13 of the 16 were sentenced to death.
Wow.
6 female children were also accused, but the one bright spot is that all of the children were eventually acquitted. So that's something. I don't know. I mean, their moms were murdered horrifically in front of them, but whatever.
And the children being acquitted does not mean that they were not victims of violence
they were
after the fact.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because of their confessions, which we'll kind of get to that in my case.
Yeah. So beyond these facts, there's not a lot of surviving information about the victims' ages or socioeconomic status, although, like, because it's such a small rural community, they're kind of more equal in terms of like money and status than it would be in like a city, you know? So like all of their husbands were like fishermen, you know?
Yeah.
Although the so-called Admiral, Kirsty Soren's daughter, was married to a wealthy tradesman and was therefore higher status than many, which also might be why she was named as, like, the leader, because she was probably the most educated. Kirsty also tried to take the bailiff down with her in her confession. So she was like, yeah, you know what?
Weird. I saw Goody Bailiff with the devil.
I saw you there at the Sabbath, Mr. Bailiff.
That party was lit, and I know you were there.
Yeah.
You made Jell-O shots.
Yeah, don't
using
even
reindeer hoof.
But this accusation unfortunately didn't stick, and he escaped prosecution. But I love that effort. I would have been like, yeah, I saw all the judges.
Yep, you were all there.
I saw you.
And you were there, and you were there, and you were definitely there.
Oh, we made out. And then we'd cackle like that and then be put to death immediately.
So throughout the first 3 decades of the Vardo witch trials, the district governor was actually a Scottish man named John Cunningham. And I think it's safe to say that he was strongly influenced by the Scottish King James I's obsession with witch hunting. So I don't know if you mentioned The Hammer of Witches, that book.
The very misogynist one.
Yeah. But King James I of Scotland was like a huge fucking witch hunter obsessive, and he wrote his own book.
He was the one who those 3 people that I told you about were tortured under.
Right.
They had a big old explosion of
Yeah.
executions.
He was a big old witch hunter, and so some people also referred to him by the nickname the Hammer of Witches.
Weird.
And so I thought it was interesting that the governor of this area was fucking Scottish.
Yeah.
And came from that influence.
Makes sense.
So 390 years after the first recorded witch trials in Varda, the Norwegian government unveiled a stunning memorial to its victims. So this was in 2011. I don't know how to say this, Stelneset Memorial was designed by Louise Bourgeois and Peter Zumthor. And you got to check out photos of this memorial. It's so cool. It's up there in Varda.
The one with the flame, right? Like
There's
the eternal flame.
All these pictures of this building
Oh, that whole thing is the memorial?
is the memorial.
Cool.
It's very cool, and there's a lot to describe. And so I found this written description by Jill Beatty on NorwegianAmerican.com, and she just did a better job describing it than I could. So, quote, on a windswept promontory, its jagged shoreline splintered by the crashing waves, over a picket fence of the local cemetery, you see Zumthor's creation in 2 distinct buildings. Memory Hall is a white textile cocoon suspended in a simple, long, cross-hatched structure made of untreated pine. Hand-sewn sailcloth is pulled taut by steel cables, inspired by the drying fish racks used in the area. The corridor is filled with 91 lamps, because 91 people were executed. Each one illuminates a window and a plaque with testimony from the trials telling the story of the person killed. When you enter on a wooden gangplank through a steel door into blackness, it is like going into a dark tunnel. The walls move in the wind, shuddering with heavy gusts. Next to this is a black spiral box built to house a chair with a burning flame in the middle.
It's so cool.
Dang.
Above it are 3 mirrors that reflect the flames, representing the damned, the possessed, and the beloved.
Ooh, I have chills.
The
Very
mirrors,
dramatic.
My dobbies.
I know. The mirrors distort the flames and make you feel like you are in the fire.
Oh,
My dobbies could cut glass.
I want to go to there.
I know. We need to go. How fucking
Wow.
cool is this place?
That's
That
so cool.
is
It's so
gonna
gorgeous.
give me nightmares. In a
Yeah.
good way.
Amazing.
So that is Varda.
wow. I
Wow.
loved that.
That was a good one.
I love this episode.
I know. I love our own pick for ourselves.
Yeah, we nailed it. We nailed it. Okay, are you ready for my case?
I'm so excited.
Which is loosely linked to Kenyans in the end.
Love it.
So, as we've obviously determined in this episode, witch hunts, trials, executions, they were happening all over the place, far beyond Salem, Massachusetts. And this is a story out of Sweden
Oh.
that makes me terrified of my blonde ancestors.
Yeah, real
Because
creepy.
I know what side my ancestors were likely on. And it's not the witch side.
Oh, no.
I mean, I know myself. Witch hunts began in Sweden as early as 1527 during the period of the Swedish Reformation, where historical records suggest about 100 trials over the course of 50 years, leading to 10 executions during that time of Reformation. In 1608, Sweden passed the Witchcraft Act, which replaced a previous law stating that, quote, sorcery was only punishable if combined with murder. So like Lucy mentioned, they were pretty chill about it. Unless you committed like an actual crime, we're just going to leave it. But they replaced it now and instead allowed the death penalty for all forms of sorcery based on one line in the Bible that reads, of course, misogynistically, quote, thou shalt not let a sorceress live.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So this is from Wikipedia. Quote, in the Middle Ages, sorcery was not considered a serious crime. Sorcery was criminalized in Sweden, Finland, in the county law of 1350, which stated death penalty for sorcery only if it had been combined with murder, but there are no confirmed cases that anyone was actually executed for sorcery in Sweden during the Middle Ages. There are a few sorcery cases where the outcome is unknown, but it was probably fines that were implemented, such as a case from Arboga City's notebook in 1471 when Karen and Brigitta Andersdotter were accused of witchcraft. Another one, the case of Erik Clausen from 1492, who was executed for consorting with the pagan god Odin, who is viewed by the Christian church as a demon, could be categorized as a witch trial, but also a heresy trial. So, like, the records
Right.
are a little bit shoddy because it's not like this was a witch trial. And this law was valid until 1608, when obviously it was changed to say, kill them all for any sorcery whatsoever.
Yeah. Great. Cool. Great time to be alive.
Yep. So as you can imagine, this kicked off the real era of Swedish witch hunts, but it really took hold in 1668 with a swath of witch hunts so large that it was given a creepy name. Det Stora Oversendet, or the Great Noise.
Ooh.
Ugh. The era of the Great Noise led to about 300 executions over the course of 8 years, from 1668 to 1676, when they were finally stopped.
That is a great noise.
Yeah.
300 in 8 years.
Yep.
I don't like that.
We'll get to why it was so many in like the main story in my case.
Why it
Wow.
was
But
so
these were-
loud.
Why it was so loud. It was really fucked up. So the Great Noise really started, when Lars Elvius, a church pastor in Dalarna, interrogated a young shepherd girl named Gertrude Svensdotter. Gertrude had accused her playmate Marit Jonsdotter, of attempting to abduct her to the witch's sabbath of Satan in Blockula. And Blockula sounds pretty fucking cool, by the way. It's a satanic meadow, according to Swedish folklore, where, like, quote, the devil held his earthly court during a witch's Sabbath. And I want to add this to one of our tour stops.
Blockula.
Live from Blockula.
There was something in my case too where there was like a hill just conveniently nearby that was supposed to be like the Devil's Hill and entrance to hell, and it just happened to be like 6 kilometers from the village.
We've got a hill too.
Well, like that park and that tree in Louisville that you took us
the witch's
to.
tree.
The witch's tree. Like every town has something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just the sheer amount of trials based on like shitty and bored and tortured children getting caught up in the hysteria of equally bored and uneducated adults is fucking astounding to me. Like shitty kids, even before they were tortured, probably just to like be in the good graces during all of these ridiculous accusations.
Oh, just chucking people under buses.
Chucking people under
left and
buses. And it led to the slaughter of so many people.
Well, imagine if you're like a 12-year-old
I would do it
shepherdess and like you lose a sheep and you're like, I actually did it.
Marit
because
did it.
It was exactly.
Fucking she's a real bitch and she fucking did it.
Raven Mari did it.
Marit Jonsdotter.
Well,
Bye-bye,
also, like,
Marit.
psychologically, they don't understand
No
consequences.
consequences. Not at all.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And this situation where this accusation specifically expanded into a large trial in Dalarna in 1668, where 17 people were sentenced to death for having abducted children to Satan. So.
From a daycare / pizza parlor.
Literally my next line. The fact that this satanic panic bullshit, this is where I'm going like this, revived itself in the 80s and 90s. Like we just repeat the dumbest portions of our history over and over again and everything is dust. Clearly I'm going through it right now. And the kids didn't even get anything good out of pointing their sticky little fucking fingers at each other because in this trial, the children who were supposed victims and witnesses were punished as well, literally victim blamed for, quote, having been to Satan and participated in the Sabbath, albeit by being kidnapped. It's like we know you were dragged there, but you were fucking around with Satan. So
I don't make the rules. I literally make the rules.
I literally make the rules. And the punishment was brutal.
Oh, no.
So 148 children were sentenced with being whipped or running the gauntlet, which if you are like me and you weren't quite sure what that entails, these kids would literally be forced to run between long lines of adult soldiers, my adult sons, who would like attack them and stab and jab at them while they ran up and down these rows of soldiers.
Jesus Christ.
What the fuck?
Y'all, I would have lasted approximately 8 seconds in 17th century Sweden. And in 17th century anywhere, for that matter. This was so scary.
It's unnecessarily brutal.
These are my people. I'm so ashamed.
The French Canadians?
No, the Swedes.
I can't believe that anyone survived. It's a miracle that anyone still exists.
Humans should have been wiped from the planet so long ago.
Yeah.
We are awful to ourselves.
We're terrible. We're fucking awful. So this witch trial attracted attention and caused witch hysteria all over the country. Like, the rumor mill was basically the Facebook COVID misinformation of its time. Mm-hmm. And rumors would bounce from parish to parish about, like, with activity and then about witch activity. And then suddenly those parishes would notice witchcraft in their own community. And this was literally the same shit that we learned about during the Satanic Panic and like QAnon conspiracies of our generation. Folks were just convinced that witches were abducting children to the Witches' Sabbath of Satan of Blockula, where they were exposed to sexual abuse and forced to sell their souls. Like, this is still happening now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am not well.
It's okay. You got your appointment to up your meds. It's coming. It's soon.
I just gotta make it to the 7th. The Sabbath. The Witches' Sabbath.
The Witches' Sabbath, where you can up your SSRIs.
You guys.
I know.
Wow. So, obviously,
right there with
this caused widespread panic among parents who started to demand that the authorities issue investigations in their communities. These investigations were demanded in communities all over the country, and the witch hunt hysteria just got fucking out of control. It was literally everywhere in Sweden. It was so widespread, in fact, that the Swedish government created a Central National Witchcraft Commission in an attempt to take control of the situation. So this is again from Wikipedia, quote, "The rules of the Witchcraft Commission were issued by the king in 1673 and 1674. The 1673 regulation stated that only those accused who confessed willingly and who had played a leading role were legal to execute. The revised rules of 1674 stated that people could be executed even if they had not confessed, but that torture was, from that point on, legal to use to make them confess."
Oh, great.
Torture had been...
Even if they don't confess, you can kill them, and you can torture them to make them confess.
And
Cool.
torture had been commonly used before without legal commission. So this was just like, we're just going to make it legal. It's easier.
Mm-hmm.
The commission was divided into 2 departments under the supervision of Governor Carl Larsson Spar, who preserved the right to confirm all sentences before they could legally be carried out. So he was like at the top. He's like, you can go have your investigations, bring me your findings and your sentences, and I will decide who's put to death and who's not.
I will play God.
Yup. All the condemned were executed by decapitation, after which their remains were burned at the stake. So this was pretty much open season on witches, mandated by the government. Because if they didn't willingly give themselves up, you just fucking torture them until they did. Super dope plan. No notes, Sweden. Love it. This commission opened the gates to mass executions in villages across Sweden, one of which I'm going to focus on for the rest of my case, the Torsaker witch trials of 1674.
I have never heard of any of this, and I am so pumped.
Y'all, it's nuts. This was one of, and actually I think it was the largest witch trial in Swedish history, and took place in the small village of Torsaker, which is like smack dab in the middle of the country and a little bit to the right, like right on the bay. After a successful trial in Dalarna in 1668, led by Laurentus, a.k.a. Lars Christofori Hornius, Lars the Horniest, is what I will be calling him for the rest of the case.
Lars the horniest.
Lars the Horniest, the minister of Ytterlandes parish. He was summoned to Torsaker to investigate suspected witchcraft at a parish ministered by Johannes Watrangus.
Johannes Walrus.
Nailed it. Lars the Horniest had a method that made quick work of identifying witches, and he deployed this method upon his arrival in Torsaker. He selected 2 boys who would stand at the door of the church, one on each side of the door, like flanking the door. As folks walked into the church one by one, the boys would identify the witches by an invisible mark of the devil on their forehead that only these chosen boys could see. How fucking convenient. This is foolproof.
Wow.
Oh,
so
God.
He picked 2 random boys.
And they would
was
just
like,
point.
You can see it.
Yep. At one point, one of the boys pointed at a woman named Britta Rufina, who was the wife of Lars the Horniest. And Lars just slapped the shit out of this kid, and the kid apologized and claimed to have been blinded by the sun.
Oh my God.
Yeah, not my wife.
No, exactly. So, yeah, a couple little boys are just picking people off, and if they pick the wrong gal, they get slapped into reversing their accusation. Completely ironclad method. I can't.
That is by far
Isn't that nuts?
the most egregious form of accusation.
I can just imagine 2 little blondes in lederhosen just going like this.
Yep.
Ugh. Things didn't work out super well for those little boys in the end, though, because the 2 kids were definitely murdered later and found in Torsaker with their throats cut. Probs because of the repercussions of their accusations, which we are about to get to, but they're fucking children.
Yeah.
And children are fucking stupid and impressionable, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just doing what horny Lars told them to do.
Yeah, it's not
during
their
like
fault,
the scariest
but also
time to be alive.
I do get it.
Oh, yeah. I'm like mad and sad for them.
there is nothing they could have done, even if they did know better, to avoid any of
those
that.
kids, but also fuck those kids. I can hold both realities.
Yeah.
Mostly because children.
I contain multitudes.
Yeah, I contain multitudes.
Horny Lars came to their village and they're like,
it's
you
his
two,
fault.
come here. You're going to point at people.
Right.
And then they pointed at people and then they got killed.
Yeah.
Listen, I said it's not their fault. And also that I hate them. So,
And
I
also that it's
recognize
their
all
fault.
of it.
Maybe they were little shits.
I
Probably.
normally don't take the side of the child, but that's...
Listen, there's a lot of jams and jellies in Sweden. You know they were sticky.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
they were
Yeah.
horrific.
Yeah.
Just
These
covered
fucking
in
lingonberry
lingonberry.
motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Yuck.
These lingonberry bitches. And
Just
Lars the
Kool-Aid
horniest.
mouths.
Yes.
Lingonberry mouth.
Kool-Aid mouth. Lars the horniest was a real piece of shit and would get accusations and witness testimonies out of children through torture, which was literally mandated by the government at this point as a legal practice. He would whip the children, dunk them in ice cold water, literally put them in an oven and threaten to boil them or light the fire and cook them. I'm sorry, who is the witch here?
Yeah.
Fucking Hansel and Gretel are not the witches.
Boiling children.
I'm going to boil you and make you into soap.
Literally boiling children, but
Unless
okay.
you tell me who's boiling children and making them into soap.
Yeah.
But it's not me or my wife.
Right. How dare you point at my wife? You know it was Lars the horniest who slit those kids' throats for accusing his wife. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Oh.
As a result, the children made accusations to literally survive. So, I get it. I hate them.
Were they given a quota?
I don't know. I mean, who
just
knows?
Keep going. I'm going to dunk you again. Keep going.
Probably. They accused over 100 people in Torsaker, mostly women, but also some men and other children. The trial of these 100+ people began in October of 1674. Even though this was the biggest witch trial in the country, the original documents of the trial were sketchy to the point of being basically non-existent. The documents of 1674 summarize that the trial was just very similar to the other trials and very typical in every way, except for the unprecedented number of victims. But nothing to see here. Move right along. We're good. Of the 100 or so accused, at least 71 were convicted, though it was likely more because several prisoners were rumored to have escaped after the trial because they're like, we're going to get fucking murdered.
Yeah.
What is confirmed, however, is that 65 women and 6 men were sentenced to execution. In a book written 60 years after the trial, Lars the horniest's grandson, Jans, who got the hot goss from his grandma, horniest's wife, Britta, described the general scene after the verdicts were read in the courtroom. Quote, they began to understand what would happen. Cries to heaven rose of vengeance over those who caused their innocent deaths, but no cries and no tears would help. Parents, men, and brothers held a fence of pikes. So, literally the men of the village, the family members of the prisoners are surrounding the prisoners with sharpened wood spears. They were driven, 71 of them, of which only 2 could sing a psalm, which they repeated when they walked as soon as it ended. Many fainted on the way out of weakness and death wish, and those were carried by their families up until the place of execution, which was in the middle in the mountain. In the middle of the parish, half a mile from all 3 churches, called the Mountain of the Stake, quote. On the mountain, the prisoners were decapitated away from the stakes. The stakes were already preset. They would decapitate them away from the stakes so as not to drown the wood in blood and make it hard to light on fire. And when they were dead, their families took off their clothes and lifted their bodies on the stakes. So their own families are putting their decapitated corpses, tying them to these stakes, which were lit and burned until they went out on their own. So some would burn for days.
Were the families into it? Were they like, oh, you're a witch, sorry?
No, they probably had to, so they weren't accused themselves.
Precisely. Yeah. I don't think they were into it at all.
Okay.
The families of the executed then went home, according to Britta Rufina, without showing any emotions, as if they were completely numbed. They were probably just so fucking traumatized by all of this that they're like, if I even scream out. Like, what are you going to do? You scream out and you're a fucking witch.
Oh my
Ugh.
God.
So this mass execution was a complete overstep of the law by Lars the Horniest. The commission, as we said before, did not give them the power to conduct executions, only to conduct investigations and trials and then report the sentences to the higher court. And that court was meant to confirm these sentences before anything was carried out. And more often than not, the higher court would reduce sentences and very rarely actually confirm executions. They'd probably like throw them in witch holes or whatever.
So this Lars, the horniest guy, was just a fucking
Sadistic psycho.
Yeah.
Most of these local trials were conducted by fucking psychopaths like
Yep.
this guy. But those higher courts had like more oversight. They tended to be
A little
more
more
skeptical,
chill.
a little more rational. So like if you had the opportunity to get tried by a higher court,
Right,
you
you'd
were a
probably be
lot
let
less
go.
likely to be executed.
Which is obvious why Lars took the job into his own hands, because he knew the court wouldn't straight up slaughter almost 100 people in this village. Like there's no way it was going to happen. But these fuckers barely got a slap on the wrist for this. Like the commission called the participants in these executions forward to answer for their actions, which many of their actions were defended by authorities in Torsaker, and then the higher court was like, no more executions now, away with ye. And just like sent them on their way. It was like,
No,
don't do that
was
again.
Bad.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Do
Witch hunts-
better.
Yeah. Witch hunts continued on for about a year when in 1676, a woman named Malin Matsdotter was accused and put on trial in Stockholm. The trial led to her execution, but after the fact, authorities proved that the child accusers were lying and the woman had been killed based on absolutely zero fact. Somehow this was the first time the higher courts would be rocked by this. And they were like, oh shit, if Malin Matsdotter could have been executed unjustly, maybe like a bunch more were. We better knock this shit off. So they instructed every priest across Sweden to inform their congregants that all the witches were successfully expelled from Sweden and they will be gone forever. So we're all done here. We don't need any more trials. It's all good. Like, that's literally what they did.
This just in.
Flash news.
No more witches in Sweden. We're good, y'all.
No more
It's cool.
accusations. Okay, we're done. We want
Shutting
to
it
be
down.
done.
Shutting it down. And now there is a creepy, lasting Easter tradition in parts of Sweden to honor this bloody legacy.
Of course there is.
I know. This is not the most Swedish shit.
God.
And that's why we make little blintzes in the shape of the boys accusing people at the church door.
That's
You're
why we rub
not-
lingonberries around our mouths on Easter.
Y'all. It's not the blood of the lamb. It's just over the door. It's just lingonberry around the mouth.
A mustache.
So this is from folklife.edu. Quote, now, what do you think, what do we do with this dark and difficult part of our history that caused so much suffering? How do we manage the memories of such ordeals? In Sweden, we meet the suffering by basically playing around with the Easter Hag.
Not Easter egg, Easter hag.
The Easter Hag.
I love this.
It's basically Halloween. There are photos on the drive of little children dressed as the Easter Hag. One is like a real old picture and it's real creepy.
Oh.
Holy shit.
Our little teapot.
That is
Ew.
Damien Faye fucking Wendell right
Look
there.
at her eyes.
She has a unibrow and she's not fucking around. She means
No.
business. I love her. I love her so much.
Super
The modern
Damien
Easter
Hag.
Hag. Damien Hag. The modernized Easter Hag is like a lot more like a clown.
I am 1,000,000,000% dressing up any future child I have as the Easter Hag.
Absolutely.
Well, they kind of do have little lingonberry stains on their
They
shoes.
do. Since the 1800s, she is the tradition, the Easter Hag. She has become our heritage. They were just like, look away from that. Now look how cute the Easter hag is. This is what we're going to go with now. She has become our heritage, not the events which lie hidden in her background. Do Swedes do this to cope with a difficult recollection or to reminisce over the times before the witch trials when spells were not an evil act and the cunning women of the forest an important part of our healthcare system?
Yes.
Or do we dress our children as witches because we prefer to make quaint a wildness we still secretly fear?
Yes.
I believe that the Easter hag is a combination of these things. She is both innocent and cunning, a malevolent woman who may scare away evil beings, as well as the memory of the healing herbalist who made no pact with the devil for her abilities.
Oh, I am celebrating the Easter hag.
Isn't the Easter hag amazing?
The Easter hag is amazing. It looks like if Pippi Longstocking met with like a Russian babushka.
Uh-huh.
Totally.
There's also a photo on the drive of like the flat rock in the mountain where this mass execution took place. And it's
where
creepy.
Aslan was killed.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Oh
It's
my God.
Really
My
fucking
God.
creepy.
That photo gives me the heebs.
It's real scary.
Wow.
And that's my case.
I loved them both. Okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Before we close out, I
Incredible.
found the segment of the Encyclopedia Britannica that I quoted earlier, and perhaps I oversimplified, but just to clarify, I want to read the whole thing. The decline of witch hunts, like their origin, was gradual. By the late 16th century, many prosperous and professional people in Western Europe were accused so that the leaders of society began to have a personal interest in checking the hunts. So it was the late 16th century.
Not my wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. The legal use of torture declined in the 17th and 18th centuries, and there was a general retreat from religious intensity following the wars of religion from the 1560s to the 1640s. The gradual demise during the late 17th and early 18th century of the previous religious, philosophical, and legal worldview encouraged the ascendancy of an existent but often suppressed skepticism. Increasing literacy, mobility, and means of communication set the stage for social acceptance of this changing outlook.
There you go.
So it did begin in the 16th century, the late 16th century.
Like you said, it just took a long time for it to finally.
And it probably depended on the region because you also said in your notes that like the bulk of executions actually happened in like Germany and kind of like the middle part of the continent. But then in like the UK and in Scandinavia, apparently I think it lasted a bit longer and maybe the height of it happened a bit later than elsewhere.
Yeah.
It was spread all over the world. So
we didn't
obviously
have Twitter.
none of this.
It took a lot longer for witch hunts to go viral than Kenyon's fucking tweet about being tired.
Although the courts moved to just tell all the priests. Wait, what did you say?
She's making fun of me for that stupid viral tweet.
Which one? You've had a couple
The one
stupid
about
viral
being tired. The one where she was just complaining.
Just complaining.
Complaining on 200 or fewer characters.
Unbelievable.
And it keeps popping back up. We are haunted by it.
Oh my God.
The Easter hag.
But the move by the court to tell the priest to just tell all the people it's
That's
over.
my favorite.
That's the best.
That's probably the quickest way to just put a cap on it.
Newsflash, it's done.
We did it, y'all.
Good job, everyone.
Mission
Great
accomplished.
Great work.
Accomplished.
That was my favorite part. I was like, they did what to end the witch hysteria era in Sweden?
It was kind of genius.
It worked.
Yeah.
It fucking worked. And now we have the Easter hag.
I'm gonna
love
spend the
the
rest of the
Easter
day
hag.
looking up the Easter hag. I'm so
As
into
well
this.
you should. Easter is just around the corner. You gotta start prepping your costume.
It's New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
January, February, March, Easter.
Anyway, think critically. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.